Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Jared Brandon Wong Pickups.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Hello, it's me, Todd Novak. Glad you are here. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are very excited to have you along for this ride in this episode. Partially because we've got a really special guest on the line who is...
This is Chris Benson from Benson Amps in Portland, Oregon. Thanks so much for having me on.
Holy mackerel, we got a whale. This is going to be exciting, everybody.
Good
A whale. Not that fat.
Yeah. a whale in other terms. A big dog, is it? Well, that's also you can't talk about one's importance to the thing without some sort of large animal reference, I don't think. Maybe not. Ace in the hole? Let's go with
Buffalo.
that. Buffalo. Anyhow, Chris is kind enough to sit in on this episode with us, and we're going to have a great time talking to him, learning all about his amps and his perspective on the boutique building industry and stuff. All good things. We have a couple things that we need to take care of. First and foremost, I want to call attention to something. Attention. I don't have anything better than that. So, everyone listening, we are a community of musicians and music lovers. We are builders, we are fixers, we are players, we are reviewers, podcasters, and writers. We have different ideas. We come from different places and live different lives from different perspectives. But we have one thing in common, and that is we are all people who care about other people. The images of the storms raging in southeast Texas and Florida and who knows wherever else they're going to come from again have been pretty devastating. And we've seen entire neighborhoods and towns underwater. And we know that people are hurting out there who need help. So this is why the Boutique Builders for Harvey fundraiser and raffle was created. They've collected donations from amp and pedal builders, podcasters and players, business owners, and friends. And they're using their resources and our talents to give something back. Every cent, this is important, every cent of every ticket purchased, minus the credit card transaction fees, which they can't control, will be given to vetted organizations, orgs for short, in Houston and marked for Harvey relief. They are not keeping any of it. All the builders that are working on this are not keeping a dime. All the money collected will go to support the rescue and relief efforts in the affected areas. And here's the bonus for you, the listener, the participator, the supporter. Each ticket purchased between now and September 30th gives you a chance to win some amazing items. I've seen a list of the items, and they are amazing. I want all of them. Each have been fully donated by their creators while supporting relief efforts in southeastern Texas. So please go to our Facebook group and click on the pinned post at the top to see the seriously killer items being raffled from 37 awesome builders and contributors. And we have one of them on the line. Chris, you want to tell them what you're contributing?
We actually are contributing one of our 1-watt guitar amplifiers and speaker cabinets, the Vinny, which is, you can use it for recording or just actually direct recording as well, which is nice. It's got like a direct output on it and, 10-inch speaker cabinet, and been pretty popular for us. And we decided to kind of go all in and do kind of a bigger item. So it's a great raffle. There's so many different builders, involved. I kind of feel bad entering it myself, but if I wasn't contributing something to it, I certainly would, because it's going to be sweet.
Yeah, it is one of those weird things because you're like, yeah, I want to support, and you're like, wait, how is all this how's all this working? But it's working simply because the guys like you have donated this to get our attention and to get us to care that much more. So, I mean, I entered that raffle because I want some of that stuff. Yes, true. I also want to help the people that need some help, and this is a really easy way to do it, and it makes us as the guitar community feel involved in something bigger than ourselves. So it's a good thing. Go check it out. It's on our Facebook group, and I'm sure if you just look around for Boutique Builders for Harvey, you will find it somewhere. Next, speaking of contributing, Tony.
Yes, speaking.
Is there something on you look like you have something on your mind.
I come with a heavy heart.
Okay. No, what?
No. It's just, if you like what we do here on the Guitar Knobs, you can show us how much you like us by becoming a patron on patreon.com.
Easy for you to say.
For less than a cost of an instant lottery ticket. You can help keep this podcast moving forward. And if you're feeling a little bit more robust, you can help support us at a higher level. For the cost of, say, 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 lottery tickets, you can get one of our super cool Guitar Knobs t-shirts as well.
Yes, but if we can focus on the monthly amount, that seems much more attainable. So maybe 10 of those tickets.
we'll take.
What if one of those tickets are a winner, man? They could donate a little bit of that too.
But this is a guaranteed. This you can scratch all day and you may not get a winner. Here, you can get a T-shirt.
That's true.
And it's I've got one on right now.
It's a good shirt.
It's a cool shirt. So how do you do this? And it's easy, I think. I haven't done it myself, but I think I'm going to try. If you'd like to show your support, you can go to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs. And we really do appreciate you sharing in our podcast experience, and we really appreciate your continued support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very well done. Excellent. It's almost like it's like you don't even need that piece of paper anymore.
Right.
All right, everybody. Let's talk about guitar stuff.
Let's do it.
We're going to spin the wheel of who goes first. We're going to go to Tony.
Oh, what's going on?
What's going on in your week?
This week has been a little crazy. As you know, last week I was unable to participate in the podcast because I was out of town. And so this has been dig out week.
What does that mean?
That means all the stuff that didn't get done before I left got slammed.
Oh, no.
Got slammed into one thing. But all that being said, it still gave me an opportunity. I mean, it's the one thing that I really appreciate with technology is the ability to at least do emails and make connections if I need to, even if I'm out of town. So I was able to not come back to 800 emails by being able to just go in and
people like answers better than nothing.
People like that's
well, I mean, whatever the answer is,
that's a bumper sticker quote there.
I mean, it's true though.
I mean it's and I always make it a habit if something is particularly far behind, I'll try to before I leave drop an email to all those people and say, hey, I didn't get your thing done. It's going to be one of the first to go out when I get back. But
that goes a long way. That's what I was saying.
It does. Proactive approach.
Sure.
It works better every time.
Oh yeah.
But other than that, that's the extent of my newness of things that I've been doing this week.
Catching up.
So kind of boring. Sorry.
That's okay.
Not really. If you're not busy, then that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, how about you?
Well, all week, let's see. I played drums in kind of a punk band, and we got to rehearse this week, which is always fun and stress relieving.
Ooh.
And let's see, I hooked up some new API preamps that I purchased in my studio. Haven't gotten to test them out yet, but I do a lot of recording stuff kind of on the side. And I pretty much, other than that, I built amps and hung out with my kids.
Nice.
Yay.
Sounds. It's. I suppose it's kind of tough to escape the musical world in your line of work.
Oh yeah, it's all music all the time. In fact, I was going to add, I was while I was watching my kids, I was kind of teaching myself how to play some jazz stuff.
Oh, nice.
Just kind of dipping my toes in kind of jazz harmony and stuff like that. So, and it keeps the kids calm too, which is nice.
Wow.
Jazz can be very humbling.
Yeah.
It totally is.
Yeah.
I think pretty much every actual jazz guitar player out there is better than me at their instrument.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very humbling thing to realize. It's like, yeah, I used to think I was pretty good, but these guys are playing chords that I literally cannot play.
Well, your fingers aren't supposed to do most of that. That's the other thing.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I'll do that, and I'll be watching that, and then usually in the same stream or thread or whatever, I'll slip over into the gypsy jazz, and I'll be like, all right, I quit. Oh man, crazy.
It's gnarly.
Well, that's cool, man. Jared.
Okay, this week I have a Martin DVM, and I've never been happy with the sound. It's just not bright and clear like a Martin should sound. So I took it up to Akron to a good luthier, and he changed out the
You can
Blaze
say
guitar.
Blaze guitars.
And he changed out the nut and the bridge
Saddle.
from the bridge saddle. Yeah, from whatever it was, ebony or whatever. I don't know. Probably ebony to bone. And it woke that guitar right up. It's night and day, people. It's amazingly different. And very, very satisfied with the way it sounds now. So
I guess you're going to have to get rid of that. The
hummingbird.
Yeah.
That was ran. Yeah, that's old news now.
Yeah, throw it away.
Just garage sale that thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that I can't believe what that stuff did. I cannot believe what that small bit of work did to that guitar. So
Yeah, I just played it. It does sound great.
yeah, thank you.
What does something like that cost?
Maybe $100.
Okay.
You know,
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I'd say it's an excellent deal.
I mean,
for both pieces.
Guitar's worth maybe $18 to $2,000. So put another $100.
No,
totally changes.
That's a great deal.
Yeah.
Sure. I've been quoted much more than that for the same amount.
Yeah, it's not easy to have a nut made for your guitar. So.
Yeah. Well,
It's
made
good
well
work.
is another,
Right.
another issue altogether.
Yes.
I don't know. I think also acoustic guitars is weird. Like electric guitars is like, yeah, I can do whatever, blah, and I can get into it, and it's you can kind of tear it apart, put it back together, and it'll probably still almost be the same guitar. But for whatever reason, man, acoustic is like, don't touch anything.
They also took some scratches out and buffed it out, but that wasn't really a thing. But anyway,
That's cool.
just yeah,
Muy excelente.
exciting.
I spent a bit of time rearranging I know this sounds probably mundane, but rearranging my pedal order. Now I've got a couple, new pedals that I've got in the mix, and introducing a couple of old ones. And so I started. I read a theory that you should have your fuzz as close to the guitar as possible, which is interesting because everything else I know to be true is that the more distorted and the more you're affecting the signal, the farther out in the pedal chain, theoretically should be. You want your delays out towards the amp, not towards the guitar. And so I was like, okay, well, let's try that. And actually, I can do it. I have an overdrive before the fuzz and an overdrive after the fuzz. So I have overdrive, fuzz, overdrive, rat, distortion. So I got all kinds of cool combos to make a lot of racket with. It's awesome.
God.
These guys like it all clean. Anyways.
Oh no,
Yeah. No, yeah, that's true. You don't. You like it dirty.
I got some overdrives.
Yeah, you got a lot of firepower in that basement of yours, man.
Oh yeah.
Sheesh. All right. Well, that was a lot. I always like seeing what everybody else is up to, hearing what everybody else is up to.
Let us know what you guys are up to out there too. Just get on our Guitar Knobs page, our group, and share whatever you want.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
Share whatever you want.
Have you tried putting your pedals in alphabetical order?
I don't know that would really work at all.
Just once.
Yeah.
Try it.
So anyways, one of my favorite things coming up that we're about to do right now.
1, 2, 3, 4 on the floor.
Yes, 4 on the floor time. I love it.
All right. So my understanding was I was supposed to pick my 4 must-have pedals, which is pretty easy actually because my board only has 4 pedals.
Nice.
Excellent.
Perfect.
And I'm pretty happy with how it sounds at the moment.
Awesome.
So my first one, I'll just go in the signal chain order.
Perfect.
And the first one would be my Caroline Guitar Company Kilobyte delay, which is kind of this lo-fi delay. It's kind of analog sounding, but it's digital. And it's but the cool thing about it is it's got kind of this, it's called the Havoc control that you step on. It's just like a mother foot switch.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got the delay time knob right in front of that switch. And what you can do is step on that and get some really nice feedback, like controlled feedback going in the delay. And then actually use your toe while the ball of your foot's on the switch to move the time knob. So you can kind of get some really cool spaceship sounds.
Okay.
Sounds like it requires prehensile limbs.
Yeah.
It sounds weird, but I've been kind of looking for a delay that kind of does what it does for a while.
Well, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, you can make all sorts of cool sounds with it.
I can imagine the search. Pedal, Google search, delay pedal, ball, foot, big toe. Havoc. Oh, perfect.
There it is.
I thought what I used to think I wanted like an expression pedal that can control delay feedback and time at the same time.
That would be cool.
And there's several companies that make these where you can kind of move it back and forth. Sideways and then also up and down. So back, like sideways would be feedback and up and down would be the delay time, vice versa. So you can just get this controlled kind of swelling effect.
Wait, is that a joystick?
But this one kind of fits the bill and it's smaller. So
is that a joystick in the middle, or you said it was a knob?
Oh, it's not it's got a knob that you can kind of move with your toe.
Okay, because I know. It sounds like that would be a perfect setup to actually have one of those mini joysticks in the middle.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would be afraid that I would just like step on the joystick and
break it,
snap it, like in 4 pieces.
I'm fairly certain that everybody listening must think at this point you have enormous feet.
I really do.
I mean, this is a little tasty tidbit. I have 10.5 size feet. So.
All right.
Just kind of medium.
Yeah. That's right there in the middle. So all right.
I guess now it's in public record.
Now, I think you'll need to post a video of the pedal in action.
I think I posted one on my Instagram a little while ago. But
Something that cool.
I certainly will. I can send you guys one.
Pop it on the Facebook.
Yeah. I think we all got to see this now.
Yeah, that
sounds weird, but it's kind of awesome. And other than that, the delay just sounds really good. So
that would take me a while to get used to. Definitely.
I think you guys are imagining something that's a little harder than the reality. I'm basically I like it because I'm kind of a caveman when it comes to being on stage, and I try to make things foolproof. And this actually helps that.
Nice. What kind of stuff are you playing on stage?
Let's see. Until recently, I was kind of doing kind of Americana stuff with some psych freakouts. Mm-hmm. So like alt country, but we make weird sounds and that kind of thing. But
alt country with a little bit of Black Angels in there or something.
Yeah, okay. Pretty much.
I can do that.
Step on the Green Big Muff fuzz
or Sonic Youth
parts of it. Yeah,
for some of our.
Well, actually, that's what I'm doing now.
Oh,
we've moved way more into like kind of grunge and Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth.
Cool.
kind of territory, which is really fun. That's actually really kind of where my heart is anyways.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with never playing another Roots Inflection song in my entire life. Kind of completely over that.
Yeah. Cool, man. I just got to say, because I've been wondering when an appropriate time to mention this would be, and I think right now is, since you were mentioning your bare feet. But there's a particular poster in Craigslist in Columbus that posts everything with his bare feet in the picture.
Whoa,
and it's driving me up.
gross.
It's gross. And they're kind of weird. They're kind of weird feet. I'm just saying, there's a giant gap between the big toe and the first toe, and it just messes me up every time. I'm like, I can't unsee all these top-down feet, and it's for like, a rack mount Chandler overdrive or something. I'm like, what?
Oh my
Show
gosh.
me your feet, man. Stop.
Yeah, free toe jam comes with the pedal.
It's awful. It's awful. So people out there in the Craigslist land, don't.
No
Show
one
us
wants
your
to
bare
see your feet.
man.
No one
It's like a
wants
shoe
to see
store,
the feet.
man. Where's socks, bro?
Give me the heebie-jeebies.
Yes.
Okay, number 2. What do you got?
Number 2 would be actually a drive pedal that I designed.
Cool.
That is kind of based on our Monarch and Chimera amplifier. It's got the preamp, but instead of tubes, it's using JFET transistors, and kind of tuned. We're calling it the preamp pedal, and I've been using it for the last 4 months, and we're actually going to be releasing that pretty soon.
Really?
It's the first Benson pedal, and it sounds awesome. Like I couldn't imagine using another drive at the moment.
We got to keep on tap of that, because I think that's something we would definitely like our audience to know is out there. So when that thing gets released, we'll keep an eye on it.
I'm really excited about it. I'm really picky about overdrive sounds, and I've been I designed one a couple years ago that I used up until, then I switched to the Caroline Haymaker, and that's a fantastic overdrive pedal, but this is based on the amplifier that I've spent 7 years at this point kind of perfecting.
Right.
And so I kind of knew what I wanted all the filters to do and how I wanted everything to kind of transition into distortion. So
awesome.
Really excited about that coming up. But yeah, that'd be my number 2 pedal, the Benson preamp pedal.
Okay. All right. Will we have a picture of that to be able to show?
I can share the artwork with you guys. Right now it's in kind of a raw project box.
Oh,
okay.
And I've made about 4 of them. Like I made one for the other guitar player in my band.
Yeah.
And he's running it with his twin reverb, and it's like the only overdrive pedal he's ever liked.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then I actually sold one to the guy who kind of asked me to do the project in the first place. This guy in I think Puerto Rico got in touch, and he's like, "Hey, I want your amp but in a pedal." I was like, "Hey, that's a great idea. I'm just going to do that." And then
it's easy
that's
to
actually
ship.
how most of my products become developed. Someone's like, "Hey, I want you to design this for me," and I say, "Okay," and then I don't really do things halfway. Like that's so I actually spend like a couple months usually on a design, just kind of refining it and going back and just kind of getting it right, just because
Right.
I'm kind of obsessive in that way. And eventually he's like, and meanwhile this guy is like wondering where this thing is.
Cool.
I'm like, yeah, it's almost done. And finally I sent it to him, and he was like, "This is great." Like, yeah, I know, we're gonna start producing these.
I think that will be a huge hit, and we'll get into some of that, some of those reasons maybe why that might be a huge hit when we get to your interview part. What do you got for number 3?
Number 3 is a vintage green Big Muff, and I actually have a pedal that toggles between my overdrive pedal and that, because I don't like using both of them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of like a side switcher. But yeah, that's this classic pedal. I think it sounds completely different than the modern muffs, and
Yeah.
I haven't heard the new one that they came out with, but
The small box.
yeah. Apparently that's supposed to sound pretty good, but
Well, so yours is an old Russian then, yes? Like
Yes.
the self-tech. I didn't mean as yes, Russian, yes.
Yet.
Yeah, that would have been the like the wood box model, right?
Da.
Yeah, got it. Nice. Well played. Well, yeah, I think that would be one of the harder things. I think everybody was really surprised that pedal came out because the whole mystique about those pedals is that they all sound a bit different from each other because all the parts are crazy inside of them.
It's bananas.
Yeah. So for them, they must have gotten like about, a handful of them, played them all and said, these generally sound like this. Or something like that.
I don't know. That might be giving him a little too much credit. Sorry to rip on electro harmonics, but holy moly.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
First, we take the parts, put it in the box.
Yeah.
It all sounds good.
Yeah, I'm guessing they did it with surface mount technology this time and used completely different stuff, but just kind of utilized the old schematic.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I don't know that for sure. I haven't opened one up yet, but seems to be what they're doing these days.
Yeah.
Just kind of getting the surface mount stuff going.
Yeah. Well, and then you had Way Huge bust out the Russian pickle just before that launch. So, and that thing, I actually like the way that one sounds. Cool. All right, number 4.
The fourth one is the Matthews Effects Astronomer.
Ooh, yeah.
And that I don't know why I like it so much. Like it's pretty. It's weird. I feel like the reason I like that reverb is it fits well in a mix. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily going to wow you, like just kind of playing it by itself. I mean, you could dial it in to get pretty impressive, but
yeah,
just using it subtly, it does a really interesting thing in the mid range and just kind of a mix of instruments. And I just can't seem to get it off my board. It's really cool, and then it's got the dual setting there, where you can have kind of a more of an aggressive reverb sound with adding some shimmer or whatever, and you can toggle between that and the kind of subtle thing. So
right.
I really like that pedal.
You brought up a good point. The reverbs in the mix. One of the issues that I have with. I don't have like a big list of issues with this is on it or anything, but I feel like I notice when we see reverb demos that it's the classic like, play just pluck out the single notes on a chord and they just sit there and let it ring and look at how glorious this reverb is. But I don't know who's playing like that. Like if it's I want to hear a reverb being played full on, like it in a song. And I think that what you said about hearing it in the mix, for those who are doing reverb demos, play it. Go pluck out a couple notes for me to go like, well, yeah, I get it. It's beautiful. That's what reverb does. Anyways, that pedal gets a lot of thumbs up out there in the social stratosphere as well. So
it's great, man. I'm a mix engineer, and it does the same kind of thing as some of my favorite kind of mix plugins and even analog stuff. It's like it's really cool for just kind of blending stuff together.
Are we going to have to keep a running list of all the things that you do? Wow.
Yeah, sorry.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah,
I like to learn stuff.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
That's awesome, man. I bet you're the kind of guy that doesn't do them poorly. I mean, clearly you do things pretty well. So,
I'm sure I do some things poorly. But
well, the whole foot switch thing might be in there. I'm not really sure, but. So anyways, all right, awesome. Thank you for your 4 on the floor. We will get that posted on our blog and get that out with pictures and links to all that stuff, and it'll be great, and everyone will love it. All righty. Everybody, we're going to talk to Chris Benson of Benson Amplifiers about amplifiers. specifically Benson amplifiers and how they came about. I was really excited to get him on the line because I spend a ton of time out on the internet looking around at gear stuff, and Benson Amps is something that I see a lot of. And when I talk to other guitar players, I hear a lot about. And I think it's one thing to have to do that and have it, in the moment. It's another thing for that to be a constant conversation, whether that is, a visual conversation or a conversation with somebody else. It's just information, constant flow of information. And I think with the climate that we're in the boutique industry, you're sitting very well in there. And I wanted to find out why. What's up with Benson Amps? So anyways, happy you're here. We're just gonna have a chat about, how you got into this, what your gear is actually about, what you think about a few things, and maybe get a little bit of advice on the way out.
Whoa, advice. I'm not sure about that.
I hope you have opinions, because we're going to ask for them.
That's where you share all your secrets.
Yeah. So
all my secrets are covered under goop. Silicone goop.
There it is.
Spray paint.
Chris, if you can give us just a brief overview of what got you excited about guitar in the first place, and then at what point did that transition into you saying, I think I'm going to make something?
Yeah. Okay. I come from a family of more or less scientists. My dad is, just all my brothers and sisters are doctors and kind of in scientific fields. And I was kind of the one musical artist, poet, black sheep guy. Who just was obsessed with music, as soon as I was exposed to it much. And, the only thing I wanted to do was kind of play music and, play electric guitar specifically.
What was influencing you at the time?
I came up listening to the stuff that really blew my mind when I was a kid was, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins, just kind of grunge bands. Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix. I got into a lot of classic rock in early high school, and I just listened to mainly just guitar-driven stuff. And later on, when in college, I started listening to Dylan and the band and Grateful Dead and kind of like roots singer-songwriter stuff. Neil Young, Sonic. I listened to like artier stuff like Sonic Youth, and was always sort of looking to play in bands and be with people who were also playing music. And I just kind of toured around, was always just kind of playing and obsessed with and preoccupied with playing bass or guitar.
Once that gets in your blood, it's pretty much impossible to get out.
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird addiction thing. Just something I kind of have to do. And, I just don't have any real reason to do it anymore. I don't have I don't think I'm going to be a rock star or anything, but I'm just, still playing just because it's something that I kind of have to do, and, do small shows and small little tour runs type thing.
Yeah.
Even still when I have, tons of responsibility and not a whole lot of time.
Yeah. I know exactly what that's like. I'm in the same boat, and it's, there's something that I equate it to, if you get a tattoo or something, like once you get one, it's kind of hard not to get more. And once you play on stage, man,
when you see people having
like
fun, man, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Having people enjoy what you're doing.
Even if you're the only one enjoying it. Yeah. Empty room. I've played to a completely empty room before.
Wow.
We've been there.
That's impressive.
I've been there.
Chase the bartender away and everything.
One person, and he was out in the middle of the floor just going nuts. That's happened before to us, too. years ago.
I've done that for sure.
Yeah. So what kind of gear were you playing really early on?
The funny thing is I didn't really give a rip about gear until I was about 27.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing plywood acoustic guitars or, the cheapest stuff I could really find. I didn't have a whole lot of money or drive to even get nice stuff. Like I was just like, I really like the way this thing sounds. So I think technically a lot of what I was making could be considered lo-fi music.
Mm-hmm.
And just record it with cheap 4-tracks or in cheap, hard drive studios. I don't know if you guys remember the hard disk recorders.
Oh yeah.
Of the
yeah, I mean
of the late 90s.
Sure.
Just completely gutless sounding in retrospect.
DAT, baby.
Oh, don't forget the Tascam Porta Studios on cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've owned a few of those for sure. And I just kind of was going, and mainly I would just play bass and lap steel in bands, and I would just get whatever worked. Like I was just playing enough to where I didn't really think about the instruments that I was playing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had, I guess maybe it was like 20. Yeah, I had this kind of come to Jesus moment when I was 27, I believe, where I was in a practice space, and I'd been playing like solid state bass rigs my entire life. Actually the same one for 12 years of it. This Ampeg B100R solid state bass amp. This combo, haul it around is great, bulletproof. And I plugged into a Fender Bassman, 50-watt Fender Bassman 212 speaker cabinet, just like mid 70s, not even a good era, and played a couple notes, and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds way more 3-dimensional than I'm used to. And I almost like, I still remember the feeling of almost like falling over in just shock. Like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't just amplifying my bass sound. This is an actual instrument that I have to play as well as my bass. And there's kind of a marriage between them. And it became like more of a 3-dimensional instrument. And that was kind of when I became obsessed with tonality and kind of quality of sound. I hadn't really gotten that before, other than, thinking my crappy 4-track stuff sounded kind of cool.
I love what you just said right there, and I want to reiterate that, because that is one of maybe the best quotes that I've heard yet about gear. Which is that you realized in hearing the amp that was an instrument that you had to play as well as your guitar. Like most people don't think about that. It's just an extension of it's just an amplifier. Like you said, it's just an amplifier. It's a megaphone. But man, it so isn't, especially a good one. And I'm glad that you said it that way. That made me feel good about stuff.
Well, it took a while to get it, but then I got it pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I had to have one and kind of follow up on this kind of new revelation. So I didn't have a whole lot of money, but that's when I started looking into, well, these are just components. I think you can just put these together. Like you can figure out a way to make one, and maybe I could save a couple $100. And so I did, I would say, thousands of hours of research.
Oh.
Well, maybe not before I built my first one, but maybe like 500 hours of research. It's like, well, how do you do this? And I just read everything that the 2007 internet had available on it in regards to making your own tube amps.
Which is still relatively early in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, the forums weren't super active, but there were some guys who had a lot of really good information on their website, especially like I remember Doug Hoffman's website, I think, which is still up, el34world.com, was just like kind of a brain dump of how to be an amp tech. He's like, this is how this works. These are what these components sound like. And here are some layouts, and here are some modifications that you can do, and blah, blah, blah. He just like dumped his brain into the internet in regards to tech stuff. And I remember just spending hours, poring over his articles and reading the schematics. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Awesome. It's kind of amazing that there were. I still think it's amazing whenever you look up something, you're like, wow, someone took a whole bunch of time, a lot of time, and put all this out here for me just to nab and then do my thing with it. And the things that people were doing that even that early is kind of crazy. So when you started building your own, so you built that amp, and then how did you make the transition to, okay, this is really cool, I really like this, let's do more?
Well, so the first amp I built was a 5F6A Tweed Bassman circuit into an old burned out Bassman chassis that someone had given me, and got it all together, and miraculously it worked. As soon as I flipped it on, I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. I mean, it had like tons of bad solder joints, and the wiring was really sloppy, and I couldn't afford new tubes. So wow. I just had whatever tubes had come in the burned out Bassman.
Oh, wow.
So I just, stuck those in, and they were red plating all over the place. But it sounded really, really good. It sounded way better than any of the guitar amps I had been exposed to. I was like, this is amazing. Like, not only does it work, but it actually sounds better. Like, maybe there's something to all this hand-wired stuff that they're talking about.
Yeah.
I was used to mainly hearing like Hot Rod Deluxes and amps like that, kind of prosumer PCB style amps, and this was something way different. Like, I immediately knew that it was just sounded better and had that 3D quality to it.
Cool.
So I built another one. I built a 5E7 Bassman, and this time I didn't start with the guitar chassis. I actually went out and got like a chassis that someone was selling like 40 miles away for like $20, and built it into that one. That time I actually came up with a layout myself. Like, I drilled the holes in the chassis and didn't follow, one of Doug Hoffman's layouts, and just kind of actually wired it all point to point on terminal strips, which is how I still do my amps now.
Wow.
And that one worked.
Did you have experience doing terminal strips before? Is that how or did you just take to it?
No, that was the first time I had done it. It was a smaller chassis, so I had to. It wouldn't really fit any sort of circuit board or turret board or whatever that people were putting in. So I was like, well, I'm just going to do it to terminal strips, because I know that's how they used to do things in World War II, and they're pretty good at making stuff in World War II.
Yeah.
And so I just did it to terminal strips and came up with my own layout, and that one worked too. And I actually covered that one that was the first amp I covered in stripes, which I don't know if you know my products well enough. That's when it kind of broke. It was all of them were striped. Like I always said, I wouldn't make any amps that weren't striped. We have obviously gotten away from that, but
yeah.
That was like a matter of going to Joanne Fabrics and picking. Going with a good friend of mine, just what one of these fabrics is going to work? Like, what is the most tweed-like here? And finding the stripes and just trying that out, putting some polyurethane on it, and it looked awesome.
If somebody says Benson Amps, I think that is something that someone immediately thinks about, the stripes. I want to find out from you, people seem to really gravitate to your brand. I'm not saying they gravitate to your amps, which I know they do, but I think there's something about the brand that you've cultivated that is really attractive to people. You mentioned the stripes. I know that that's part of it, but I know that there's a lot of other aspects that go into this very specific brand appeal. Can you tell us how you kind of ventured into that? And you said, I know you just started with the stripes and the fabric, but how did everything else kind of like come together and evolve?
Oh yeah, you're gonna laugh because I really didn't care about how things looked when I started at all. Like branding was very much not a concern of mine. I was just like, I'm after the sound. Like, who cares about how it looks?
Right.
I was just trying to wrap it in something. So I made a couple amps, and I did an apprenticeship at Varellin Amplifiers in Seattle, and where I learned a lot of my electrical engineer skills from Ben, who's an electrical engineer. Ran his repair shop for a few years and just kept designing and building, and eventually came up with a circuit that I really liked, which is kind of the culmination of everything that I had kind of learned there, which is the Monarch circuit. Mm-hmm. And I showed that to my friend Dan, who is a world-renowned guitarist, Dan Phelps. And he, I'd play in some bands with him, but I was kind of not really in the same ballpark in terms of musicianship. I mean, this is a guy who played with Tori Amos and went on these huge tours and had all this incredible gear. And he had an incredible ear and incredible talent. And we were friends, and I brought an amp over to his studio space once, and I was like, hey, I think this is kind of good. Do you want to listen to it? And he was like, yeah. And he played it. He was like, yeah, this is actually really good. Oh, thanks for showing this to me. And then a couple months after that, I got a call from a guy that Dan knew who's an entrepreneur down in Florida. And he was like, hey, I want to buy an amp. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I can make you one of these amps that I designed because it sounds like that's what you want. It's like, yeah, okay. And we started that process. And I think, I don't even think I delivered the amp to him yet, but he was so, I guess, he was like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to help you build this business and give you an investment and help you build the brand. It's like, wow. Okay, well, let me think about that. I didn't really have anything else going on. I just got my master's in education when the economy tanked. There's no jobs in teaching. I was like, well, you know what? I may as well just give this a shot for a couple of years. And it's like, okay, so what you need to do is get some branding done. I was like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. Had no concept of, where a logo or any of it came from. And he's like, no, I know this guy, he'll do it. And it was like this obscene price. He was like, no, trust me, it's worth it. It's worth it. And so we got this guy to design, the logo and the artwork on the face panels and kind of the general look of the whole thing, mm-hmm. As well as the website and stuff. He did a killer job. Nate Manny up in Seattle, 51 Eggs, did all of our branding. And I was like, got the package, and then, I opened the PDF that he sent. I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get this now. Like, this logo looks really slick, and, I like the way that all of this looks together. Like, I kind of get it. Still not being a completely visual person, but I could tell it was good. And that's kind of how that started. So I kind of lucked into it. Like, I went from not really giving a crap about it to all of a sudden having this pretty cool looking brand. And from there, I've kind of like refined my own kind of eye and design sensibilities. And at this point, I'm doing pretty much all of our branding just out of necessity. But I was not a visual person and didn't really care to be one before having this company.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that. I mean, it fits. There's a zeitgeist to it. It just all works.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that. We've tried to not do anything terribly off-brand. Oh man, you should see the early demo videos. They're ridiculous. There's like cans of paint. cans of paint in the shots. And
I was trying to explain this to a couple other people who don't know anything about guitars, and I was like, yeah, so we're going to interview this dude who makes these really killer amps, and like, oh, what's it like? And I was trying to explain, I'm like, it's kind of like if you had a Miller High Life in one hand and like a Milwaukee Electric equipment in the other.
Yep.
And in a really comfortable shirt. And they're like, oh, that sounds really good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, I've gotten a lot of compliments on that. People say it's kind of like a weird, it's a comforting kind of branding in a weird way. Like it's kind of comfortable. It's not like, austere or it doesn't really ask a whole lot of people to enjoy it. So.
Yeah, it's just, well, that leads me into my next angle here, which is there's a simplicity to what you're doing, and it isn't just coming through in your aesthetic. Obviously, it starts way deeper than that, and your equipment is devastatingly simple.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
for
and
sure.
it's I think that it's disarming in some aspects, because most of our equipment it does everything. Think about anything in your life right now that you own. It does at least 5 more things than its initial purpose, right? I mean, I'm generalizing, but does my microwave really need an alarm? I don't think so. But, I hope it cooks stuff well. So because your amps are so simple, this struck me as interesting, because I think a lot of the amps that we're familiar with are quite the opposite of that. I was just curious, why do you think that is? Why do you think that we're kind of in that state right now?
I know exactly why that is. So I was a repair tech for a long time before I started building amps, and I just saw over and over again people adding too much to the circuit. And, if you have twice the circuitry, there's literally twice the chance that the thing is just going to go down before a show.
Yeah.
Or something's going to break. Like, you put more stuff in it, more stuff's going to break, and you will literally be getting it repaired twice as much. And I really didn't want that. I thought that was kind of bad design. And a lot of it, I think, stemmed from a fear on the part of the builders about not making choices about what they want their stuff to sound like. Not really, what does a Mesa Boogie sound like? It's hard to say. Like, there's sort of a sound, but there's so many options, and they all break all of the time, and they get dirty, and the switches fail, and the pots fail, and part of the reason my stuff is so simple is I just want it to be completely bulletproof and not have any extra stuff to go down, essentially, just because I saw it all. I saw every place on an amp that could possibly fail in my years repairing thousands of amps. So that there's that part of it's kind of control freaky on my end as well. Like I have a very clear idea of what I want something to sound like, so the controls are more or less to EQ to match the guitar to the amp, instead of make the amp do something that someone might think that they want. So the bass knob on the Chimera, for instance, is an extremely gentle EQ slope that goes from 20 hertz all the way up to 750 hertz, which is a huge span. And it's basically just to dial in the exact amount of bass that you're going to need for the guitar that you're playing, but not really, you're not able to really sculpt it, because I felt like that would kind of detract from the sound. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just kind of control freaky on my part.
No, that makes a lot of sense. When people talk about amps, it's sort of, they say, oh, it sounds like a this, or it sounds like a this, or it sounds like there's, you got a Fender, you got a Marshall, you got a Vox, maybe an Orange. Mm-hmm. No matter what, people equate a specific sound, a new sound that they hear, to one of those. And you seem to have developed a sound that that isn't one of those.
Yeah, I would agree. And I realize that's like, I mean, that's a mouthful for a lot of people. That's like hard to swallow. And they're like, no, come on. It's not new. What are you talking about? There's no such thing. Like I've heard it all. And I've convinced a lot of those jaded guitar players that, yeah, there are new sounds, and
yeah,
we haven't perfected the tube amp yet. It's kind of funny to me because at a certain point you start to see what Fender, like I know Fender schematics at like the back of my hand at this point. Like I could trace Leo Fender's thought process from, the late 40s all the way to, 65 and even later, because, he did the music, and you could kind of see his schema of what an amplifier does changing over time. It's like, what is his, I wouldn't say his goals shifted, but like his understanding shifted, and you could see why he made all the decisions he made, just by seeing like, oh, okay, like obviously in this design, there's way too much like sub bass, or in this design you didn't have enough input headroom, and you can kind of see him tinkering with stuff, even well-known amps like the 50s Tweeds. Yeah, a lot of time where you could tell that they were like imperfect, and they were cool, but all that to say, he was always tinkering, and he was one of the only guys who actually knew what he was doing. Like Vox was just copying Gibson, and Marshall was just copying Fender, and everyone was kind of copying Western Electric, stock circuitry, and none of that stuff was supposed to distort well.
Right.
Like they thought it was supposed to be clean, back then, and no one was designing around like harmonics and things like that. And so for people to say, tube amplification reached its pinnacle in 1965, they weren't designing around harmonics, and that's what people today are kind of obsessed with. Good harmonics, like increasing that, giving more control to that, and that wasn't even on their radar.
Well, you just mentioned something that I think is worth saying in follow-up to my earlier statement about you're finding, that unique sound is like those harmonics, the amps that you're building have an actual voice to them, not just an amplification. It isn't just a louder sound. It is an instrument. It sounds like a voice, and it has those sort of intangible elements that people equate as the magic of tube amps or whatever. But that's just something that I'm noticing.
Yeah, I just I was kind of wondering. We talked about all the different brands and options and things that are available out there. And when you first started up your business, did you find it difficult to get the word out, to get people to try things? Basically, how did you jump into the sea of amplifiers?
It must have been very daunting.
I was probably too naive to be much daunted by it, to be honest with you. I didn't realize how bad of a business making guitar amplifiers actually is. It's very
almost as bad as pick guards, probably.
Yeah, right. It's a bad business, and most of them fail. And if I had known that, I'm not sure I would have done that. Gone into it in the first place, but I was just kind of like, I like doing it. I'm just going to do it, and not really do any sort of market research. And I was kind of lucky in a lot of ways because, I had grown, I had spent my 20s playing music in Seattle with a bunch of now well-known musicians and bands and stuff. Like I was friends with, I am very good friends with Jessica Dobson, who played in the Shins right when I was starting my business. Her own band, Deep Sea Divers, is doing really well right now too, and she's been playing my amps since the beginning. I was friends with the Head and the Heart. They were like my second sale. So I was just kind of like buds with a lot of people who were just touring all over the place, and offered some instant credibility to what I was doing. there's like a long list of just indie rock folks that I still know from my days in Seattle, and that kind of drove sales almost immediately. I just had like good connections from just being a gigging scrub.
Your amps are doing pretty well as far as notoriety now and respect and desire for your product. On your way to that success, were you at any point, about to call it a day, or was there any doubt in your mind?
Well, I sold like 10 amps my first year, and I was still working full time as an amp tech during all this time. So
that's pretty good, right? That sounds like it's really good.
Oh, 10 amps? Yeah, it's good. I mean, that was mostly to like friends and family.
Right.
Well, like, lucky dogs have those right now. Jeez Louise.
I got serial number 3.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I think like the first 10 amps went to people that I knew. Then I gave a couple away, which I don't do anymore in case anyone's interested.
Smart move.
I'll promote you, man. I swear.
Yeah, right. Well, I just found, giving stuff away, people don't value it nearly as much as when they pay for it. So it's almost self-defeating.
Right.
I just got really, really lucky with kind of the people that I knew, and I'm not sure that like I'm fairly certain that knowing what I know now about how hard it is to break in, I'm not sure what kind of advice I would have given to myself. Like, I still kind of can't believe that it's working.
Yeah.
It's like, it's truly strange, but I've just gotten really lucky.
I think when people are saying, oh, you build stuff, it probably sounds like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun and electronics. I love guitar stuff. What's the hardest thing that you have to do?
I guess, as a kind of a blanket answer, I would say change.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gone from, doing it like super part-time, like dragging my table saw out to the driveway to make cabinets, on the weekends, to, spending a couple days a week, in my garage, to doing all. I mean, I had to learn how to do graphic design. I had to learn how to do books. I had to learn how to run, do payroll and stuff like that, which is bananas for me to even. It's just been like a lot of kind of new skills that I've had to kind of take on out of necessity, not really having been interested in them before, but I've had to learn a ton. And usually there's a great deal of kind of wasted energy and angst because you don't know how to do things. It just takes a long time, and you usually do it wrong and mess it up the first couple times. And then like for this year, we've grown fourfold. Like I think we've quadrupled over the last year in terms of like, all of a sudden I have a crew of like 8 or 9 people, some of them part-time, some of them full-time. That it was pretty much just me and one rapper, like amp rapper, who worked part time up in.
Like East Coast or West Coast style?
I'm sorry.
The rapper.
The rapper. Yeah, man. Well, we call the bathroom the green room for the rap artist. But it's just like being. I guess the hardest part has been kind of maintaining being dynamic enough to not go under.
Right.
just to survive.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, it's. Yeah. I think probably Jared and I both can relate to that, because when you do start up a small business, I mean, you think you have a lot of things, you're a good background, or maybe you have experience in that sort of thing, but I think until you dive straight in, you don't realize all the other things that you get involved with.
Yeah, it's kind of like wow, look at this. I got to do this now. Surprise.
Didn't know that was coming.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the funniest thing to me is when like people ask me about, business advice. I'm just like, dude, I was like literally shuffling around my garage like last year in my bathrobe, like smoking cigarettes and wiring amps.
That's the special mojo, right?
Right. I mean, I don't smoke anymore. It was probably actually like that would have been 3 years ago. Where it would have been a very sad TV show.
Today, boutique amps and pedals are in their heyday at the moment. I mean, they're crazy right now. Does that worry you? I mean,
yeah, it worries me somewhat. I kind of take comfort in the fact that, first of all, how do I answer this without sounding like a jerk?
You won't sound like a jerk, man. You're the man right now, so like you're not going to sound like a jerk.
Okay, so I feel like a lot of what is kind of popular at the moment are kind of clones.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and,
God yeah.
You know, you kind of see this constant cycle of kind of clones coming and going, and it's like, okay, what Fender clone is cool for this like 3-month period?
Mm-hmm.
Like, which one are people buying? And then you see them, you know, selling a bunch of Fender clones, and you're like, okay, and then you don't hear about them ever again at some point, and because it's like a flavor of the month thing, like.
Right.
Which is the good Fender clone right now, and you just see people cycling, and we're probably in like several generations at this point of those types of companies coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I take comfort in is that there's only one place you can go to get a Benson until people start cloning it, I suppose. But if you want that sound, and that people are beginning to know what that sound is at this point, there's one place you can go.
Yeah.
To get it. So I'm kind of not really competing with a bunch of companies I'm not going to name because I'm friends with a lot of them.
Right. And amps that are 50 years old.
Yeah, and the original ones that are 50 years old. So I'm kind of in a completely different market, and I feel like it was harder to find a place in that market. Like I kind of had to create it in some ways. Like it wasn't like an existing like Fender clone market.
Sure.
Or Vox or Marshall or whatever. But
well, I think one of the things that's unique about that is that people chase the mojo, if you will, of some of these old vintage amps. And if you've been in the game a really long time, you know, you are familiar with those. So it's not an issue. It's not a something that gets in the way of making an amp purchase. Like, I don't know a crap ton about old vintage amps. That is not an area that I have any business talking about. And so the idea of me trying to chase down that tone or like, oh, I want to get a really good, it's like, man, that'd be like walking into a bookstore having never read a book and I have to pick one. You've created a way to get a pretty magical tone. It's not that's terrible. Magical tone. It's not a magical tone. Your amps sound damn good.
It's pixie dust on it, man.
And I feel like I could achieve that without having to wonder if the magic tube amp that I just bought from 60 whenever is going to explode or is not going to need repairing in a month or, you know, any number of issues. Because you look at, you know, you see pictures of some of those things opened up and you're like, goodness sakes. Yeah. That's crazy in there.
That's, you know? The joy of owning tube amplifiers.
I don't know about it.
Yeah.
They're worth the sound, darn it.
Yeah, everything goes wrong. You really have to have someone. If you own a vintage amp, you should really just have someone more or less rebuild it.
Sure.
Because it's just not, you know, every cap is going to fail at some point. It's just kind of a matter of time.
Yeah. So, I guess when you're trying to set up either, you know, your sound or, you know, when you're approaching new products or maybe just listening, maybe you're just a guy in the audience and you're listening. When you hear like a really great sounding amp, like what goes through your head now that you're building them?
If I hear like someone having like a good tone day.
Yeah.
Well, usually my ears perk up and I say, what about this is working for me right now? And I try to pinpoint, you know, what that is. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, I know, you know, what the circuit is, what the schematic and the design and the components are of, I would say 70% of the amps that I see on stage. And I just start thinking about the amp topology and, the guitar they're using, the pedals they're using, and try to figure out what exactly I like about it. Because those experiences are what would inspire you to improve. So I started thinking like, well, if he was playing one of my amps, or he or she, if they're playing one of my amps, would I be like, does this sound good? Like, you just kind of gotta, that's what it causes me to think about. Like, I try not to get jealous. I think I used to get jealous, but now I don't really care that much. I just kind of enjoy it. Like last night, I saw my buddy Nathan sit in with a local blues band that he had never played with before, and he was like, "Oh," they asked him, at the show, and he's like, "Yeah, let me go get my amp." And he comes back and he wheels in like a JCM 800 and a closed back 212 cabinet, which is completely inappropriate for playing blues music. A couple of years ago, I would have been like, "Oh man, what a tragedy! Like, I wish he had one of mine, or I wish he had like a old Supro or a deluxe reverb or something like that."
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm getting to the point where I can just kind of sit back and be like, "Yeah, it kind of is what it is. Like, I'm just going to enjoy it."
Nice,
right?
And he sounded like Santana, because it's just like this high gain, amplifier.
Well, speaking of that, what is going into the amps, as far as gear goes, like, what do you really love to hear?
I mean, I really try to design them so they're going to work with most genres of guitars. What I personally play is usually some P90s and a Bigsby. I have a Les Paul, 73 Les Paul that I play. I've got a couple Lawsuit Ibanez guitars from the 70s that are kind of the same thing, but I like P90s, I think, mainly just because they're kind of middle of the road. Like, they'll do a lot of different kinds of sounds.
Right.
They're not too bright, they're not too dark, and I just kind of like them. But I enjoy all sorts of guitars. I really like Strats and Tellys and Jazzmasters and ES335s. I mean, I have some really esoteric, like, Ronin guitars that have like these crazy humbucking gold foil pickups in them that I love too. Kind of like it all. I mean, like the whole genre. But my personal voice is P90s.
Nice. P90s through Les Paul. Can't argue with that.
Yep.
It's a tough one to beat. Yeah. Is there someone, past or present builder, that you would like to, you would show your amp work to and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" In other words, kind of like you're a mentor, if you will.
I mean, Mike from Dr. Z, he's been around the block for a long time, and I really respect his original designs a lot. I've only talked to him on the phone once or twice, but just in terms of like the scope of his business, being the size that it is and kind of maintaining the small builder kind of status, like I guess I would kind of see him as a mentor, but he doesn't know it.
The accidental mentor.
Yeah, like I kind of look to him for like kind of inspiration and that kind of thing. So a lot of respect there. There's tons of guys who I respect the ears of. Tim Marcus from Milkman and Adam from Satellite and a few others. But yeah, in terms of original circuits, I would say probably Mike Zate.
Cool.
Very cool.
I have a Maserati, for the record, so
right on.
I love that amp.
Maserati. So we don't get you into trouble with your represented artist. Whom from the past would you like to see making your amps do their thing?
Like dream artists, you mean?
Sure. I mean, is there anybody in particular that you wish would just call you on the phone and say, "Hey, man, I just got to have your amp"?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny. Like, I've been a Bob Dylan fan for a really long time, and Charlie Sexton, Bob Dylan's guitar player, messaged me the other day and said, "Hey, man, I forgot to use one of your amps in the session. I really, really liked it. Good job." I was like, "Oh, dude,
Nice.
If I could have an amp on stage with Bob Dylan,
That would be pretty awesome.
That would be kind of lifetime achievement unlocked.
Wow.
That would be unbelievable. And he never got. I told him as much, but he never got back. We'll see.
Huh.
But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like a wake up call. Like, man, I like really enjoyed this guy's playing before I wasn't even into amplifiers. Like, that's crazy. And then, obviously Ryan Adams is kind of the pinnacle for a lot of people in terms of tone chasing as well. And I really like what he's doing with the amps. Very, very honored that he's playing them.
So we talked to you a little bit about giving some advice, and we just got a couple things we want to hit on real quick, because I think when we're talking about boutique tube amps, I'm talking about your boutique tube amps, and that's attainable for somebody. For some people it isn't. So for some people, they're the person who's still playing their first solid state amp, and doesn't know how to venture into the tube amp world.
Sure.
And I know that you've been there. I know that we've been there. So I just wanted to find out, like, if you're a younger musician, what are some things that one should be mindful about when, in your opinion, in getting into the boutique tube amp game? And I mean purchasing. I don't mean building. Sorry.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's such a multifaceted question that could get me into trouble in so many ways. Gosh, if you don't know what you're looking for, you probably shouldn't be getting a boutique amp.
Good point.
Because you can spend some time with like a Hot Rod Deluxe or whatever and get a pretty darn good idea of if you like the Fender sound or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you could spend a lot of time with a $400 AC15 and figure out if you're a top boost boy.
Mm-hmm.
Or, there's any number of different vibes of amps, and all of them have cheap versions. Whatever you get, make sure that it's going to be the right sound for you. I mean, I have friends I know people who've just made like crazy gear decisions based on like, well, it's boutique, it's got to be good. I have a friend who bought a Mesa Boogie who's trying to play country with it.
Oh.
And he just got the Mesa because it's like, oh yeah, that's just like that's a good name. That's a nice amp.
Right. So
I'm going to get the Mesa. And it turns out, it's not really the correct amp for what he was looking for. So I would say make sure you know what you want. Don't just and look at guitar players that you like too, and if you like their sound, check out what they're using. That's usually pretty good.
Yeah,
would be a good indication. So there's today with the internet, YouTube, and whatnot, and so many boutique things being out there, you can educate yourself pretty effectively.
Yeah.
Before you even get into it. So I'd just say do your research and buy Benson.
There it is.
Capital idea.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you're out and about, you look at rigs and things like that. I mean, what do you see some players doing wrong, and how they're setting up, what settings they're using, things like that? What do you see that particularly bothers you?
I wouldn't say any of it particularly bothers me, but I used to be a lo-fi person, so I can listen to Pavement, and like Pavement's first record where it sounds like a Boss DS1 jacked right into a board, and it's like terrible sounding, but it kind of fits. So I guess what I would say is you shouldn't limit yourself based on what others tell you is good or not. You should kind of like seek your own voice out. And you see so many people just buying things because people tell them, or it's the new fad.
Yeah.
The new hot item to get. But I would say just kind of use and trust your ears and develop your ears.
It's really hard to not fall into those traps. I have done that. I thought sure. I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be a Vox guy. And then I got a Vox, and I was like, I fought that thing. It was like one of those old-timey circus strong man against the Russian bear in the skirt fight. That's what it felt like, and it just didn't work. I couldn't gel with it.
I just got a whole bunch of amps. That way, I'd eventually end up with something I like.
That is true. You went that route.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely do that.
One of these is sure to work.
Right. One of these I'm
Right.
gonna like the way I set it up eventually.
Yeah.
Well, cool, Chris. I really appreciate you sharing all that insight with us. It's super fun learning about, what goes on in your head with the building and how you got there and everything. We're going to transition into our
Would you rather?
Oh.
yes.
All right.
It's would you rather time. Okay, guitar knobs. You've got a guitar, and at the
He's been
12th
practicing.
at the 12th fret.
No, the whole thing, man.
Okay, the whole thing.
No
we're,
dots.
We're doing the whole thing.
No dots.
No dots. Your fretboard on your guitar. Would you rather? You have two choices. Now you have to choose one or the other. Would you rather have lightning bolt inlays? Lightning bolt inlays. Awesome. Or would you rather have to have the skulls like Skeletor? Skulls.
There's lots of
You
other
know who
skull
Skeletor is, man.
Besides Skeletor.
Well, just skulls.
Okay.
Forget Skeletor.
Yeah.
He's awesome, though.
Alrighty.
God.
Yeah, you for sure have been practicing in front of the mirror.
Not really, man. That was...
No. All right.
He's just a natural.
Yeah.
Just a natural.
Tony, hit us.
I don't want either.
You have to choose. You,
You
have
can't
to.
make me choose.
You must.
All right, I'll take the skulls. I
Ah.
guess.
All right.
In honor of
Skeletor?
of Skeletor, yeah. And all the other skeletons out there.
Jared.
Well, I'm going to have to go lightning bolts. Lightning bolts all the way. Because that stands for power. Right?
That he
Yeah.
didn't- obviously he didn't practice that part.
No.
Yeah, no,
That was dumb.
That was right off the. Chris, what are you doing?
I think there's only one legitimate choice here, and that's going to be skulls
Okay.
Okay.
for sure.
Are you thinking Skeletor style skull, human style skull,
Like a
or
pile
like-
of skulls?
That's on,
It's
the,
like
on the 12th.
I'm thinking like Soviet war propaganda
Ah,
skulls, and I have
I
a
could see that.
specific one in mind from a propaganda poster, but it's kind of smiling with a side profile. It's pretty cool.
nice. A smiling skull. I'm going to lightning bolts.
Yeah.
Why is that?
All
Because I
right.
drew
All right.
hundreds of them on my peachy folders and with Ace Frehley and like
Yeah.
lightning bolts, man.
Lightning
Gotta do
bolts.
All right, that's the important stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Glad that's settled.
Yeah.
I mean, you can really play much better with good inlays.
So, anyways, Chris, can you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and where they can see your stuff and anything else you want to throw out there?
Oh, yeah, sure. So we actually have a dealer network, a lot of dealers across the country, and then we have a bunch of YouTube videos, kind of demo videos. There's a lot more coming soon. Yeah, for sure. We have demos coming out done by Ariel Posen from Brothers Landreth and my friend Dan Phelps, who is the guy that I was initially trying to build an amp for, even before I had a company.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's there's going to be there is a lot of content, and there's going to be a lot more. So
Killer.
Cool.
you can buy direct. Just go to our website, bensonamps.com. You can email me directly, chris@bensonamps.com, and I'm happy to answer any sorts of questions or whatever. And I usually return emails the same day. So
You were pretty rapid with me. I appreciate that.
it's like, yeah, it's one of my only jobs now with my crew doing stuff. I do that and the hard technical stuff. And
Cool.
Nice. Well, we're gonna wrap this up, put a bow on it, get out of here, and get some pizza. I want to thank you, Chris, for joining us and spending all your time with us. It's greatly appreciated. For the listeners out there, if they have questions about these amps, this episode, or anything like that, you can shoot it to either him or us at theguitarknobs.com. You can visit our site and get that information. We want to thank you, the executive producers, Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, David Wolfson, Martin Brammer, and Carlos Mancha.
Carlos!
We appreciate their support. And if you would like to become an executive producer on our show, you can head over to patreon.com/theguitarknobs to find out how.
It's easy.
It is. It'll make you feel good in your belly.
Yep.
Like the pizza we're
Like
about
the
to
pizza.
eat. Subscribe! Yeah.
Once I've restored evil linen faker, I'll be back to have vengeance. So swears Skeletor.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.